Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is Rob, aka The Diligent Dev, and welcome to episode 2 of Vue in 5 minutes, where I try to distill Vue concepts in 5 minutes or less. Now today we're going to be talking about dev tooling and project structure, so let's hop on over to the computer and get right into it. Okay, so what I've done is created a brand new Vue project and called it Vue 5 Min. If you don't know how to create a Vue project using their CLI, please watch episode 1. I'll link it on the screen right now. But before we get into the actual project structure, let's look at some development tools that we'll be using to make our application development much easier. So inside of Visual Studio Code, there's this little extensions tab, and we're going to go here and we're going to type in Vetur, and we get this tooling extension for Vue. And it's going to give us a lot of things like syntax highlighting, snippets, formatting, just all sorts of good stuff that's going to make our development a lot easier, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And then to go ahead and work with our Vue application in the browser, we're going to be using Vue.js Dev Tools. So I highly recommend you use Chrome, and you go ahead and you add this extension. And I will leave a link to this in the video description below because it is quite a long URL. Okay, so now that we've gone over the tooling, let's talk about the Vue project structure. This first folder you see up here is your node modules. So any single time you run something like npm install and then a package name, they're going to be stored in your node modules folder, and you can reference those in your project. The next thing we have is our public folder, and this is a folder that is not bundled by Webpack, and you can store things like images in here and icons. Your index.html is what the browser actually reads. You need to have something that the browser can work with, and this is where our Vue code will be injected into. You also have a robots.txt file, and you can put anything in here to disallow any type of robots that are crawling sites. Now what we're going to be working out of primarily is this src folder. Now you do have another assets folder in here, and these are assets that will be bundled by Webpack. The next thing we have is components, and this is where you're going to put all those reusable components that we're going to be making when we get into some further tutorials. The next thing we have here is the Vue router, and this is what controls our routing inside of our Vue application. Then we have our store, and this is going to be our state management or the Vuex store that we're going to be using in our application. And then we have views, and these are going to be like the main pages that people will land on when they visit your Vue application. And mostly what you put in the router is going to be your views. And then we have our app.vue file, and this is one of the main views of our application. You'll see that we have just a couple divs, and the router view is where your views that you specify in your router will get injected into. Now main.js is the starting point of a Vue application. And what we're doing here is we're setting up Vue, we're passing our router and our store, then we're saying we want to render it in the app file, or the app.vue file, and then mount it on the div that has the ID of app. Register service workers is going to be what your progressive web apps use. Browserlist.rc is going to specify which browsers we would like to target. ESLint.rc.js is your linting file, so you can specify different linter rules in your project. You'll have a gitignore for Git, so you won't add unnecessary files to your Git repositories. You'll have a Babel config that's going to transpile our ES6 syntax into ES5, which is readable by all browsers. And then we have your package.json file, and this does a few things. Gives some information about the application. There's different scripts we can run. If we run serve, it's going to launch a web server and show us a hot reload. If we do a build, it's going to build our application for production. And then there's linting, which will go ahead and lint the Vue project and tell you if you have any errors. Dependencies are packages that let the Vue CLI know that we need to include them in the production build of our application. And then we also have dev dependencies, and these are just like dependencies, but we're letting the Vue CLI know that they're only for development purposes and they're not to be included in the final production version of our application. Last thing we have is a README file, and you can put pretty much anything you want in here. It's written in Markdown language, and it lets developers know about the application. It's typically used in Git repos and stuff like that. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please drop a note in the comment section below. And until next time, happy coding.